America's the greatest country in the world. Welcome to our special Politics by Faith, God versus Technology. This is the beginning of the end, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, politics are a problem, no question. But I get this sense that the circus of politics is going on over here, and we can focus on it for a while, and that's good. But meanwhile, over here, we have the downfall of society. And I kind of think we need to fix this, like the downfall part, if we ever want to make any sort of a dent over there in the politics part. So what is this thing over here? Well, that's the battle for reality. What is real? We have a tough time answering these simple questions these days. What is a woman? What is truth? The left says there's no such thing. And now there's a new technology out there that makes this all the more confusing. Apple Vision Pro. What is the big deal about Apple Vision Pro? Now here's an interesting first point. A lot of people, I brought this up a lot on my radio show, and I've got a couple emails. People are like, Slater, I don't even hear anyone talking about this. Like, why are you talking about it? Who cares? What's the big deal? Now, why are you doing a whole TV special on these things? What's the problem? Yeah, here's the thing. We are at this very beginning phase of Apple Vision Pro. This is the Today Show back in 1994.
Back now at 56 past, I wasn't prepared to translate that as I was doing that little tease.
Oh, that's
that little mark with the A and then the ring around it.
At.
See, that's what I said.
Mm-hmm.
Katie said she thought it was about.
Yeah. Oh.
But I'd never heard it. I'd never heard it said. I'd always seen the mark, but never heard it said. And then it sounded stupid when I said it. Violence at NBC.
I heard around big fight up in the lunchroom the other week.
There it is. Violence at NBC. GE.com. I mean,
well, Allison should know.
What is internet anyway?
Internet is that
massive computer network.
Mm-hmm. The one that's becoming really big now.
What do you mean? That's big. How does one? What do you write to it like mail?
No, a lot of people use it and communicate. I guess they can communicate with NBC writers and producers. Allison?
Okay, so that's where we are right now with Apple Vision Pro. We're like, what is augmented reality? Apple Vision Pro is Apple's first go at virtual and augmented reality headsets. So you put these headsets on, and it looks like you're watching a 100-foot IMAX video screen. And it'll teleport you anywhere, not physically, but you'll feel like it. It'll really trick your brain into thinking you're there, right? If you, in virtual reality, if you're walking off a cliff or near the edge of a cliff, your body will have a physical reaction as if you're actually walking to the edge of a cliff, even though you're just in your living room and you know you're in your living room, but all of a sudden it's like you're walking off the edge of the Grand Canyon. People who have worn these virtual reality goggles, the Apple version, they say it's not even close. It's the greatest technology they've ever experienced in their entire life. There's nothing like it. You've never experienced a technological leap in your life like this before. Vanity Fair, they did a great article on these headsets. I think the cover it says like Moonshot, I think is the cover. They said this Apple Vision Pro is as far from a virtual reality headset as a kid's Schwinn bicycle is from a Gulfstream G800 private jet. Right? Like this is totally different than any even pretend version of virtual reality that we've had at this point. And this is just the very beginning of it, and that's my concern. Look how addicted we already are to our phones. Now imagine these Apple Vision Pro, and because I know you laugh at these, oh, you're like, Slater, they're big and bulky and heavy and I'll never wear them. Yeah. This is just the first go at it, right? They will only become smaller and lighter, just like everything that you've seen technology-wise in your life, and they'll only become more affordable. And pretty soon they'll just be like regular glasses, and we'll all be living in the metaverse and not in real life. So, all right, Slater, what's the problem? Let me give you one example. Just one. Now, this is not a real thing yet, but it will be like very, very soon. So guys, we have the video of a girl, in this case it's a girl wearing them, looking at her boyfriend, and she can swipe faces to different celebrity faces. There, now he looks like Leonardo DiCaprio, right? Now, most likely this will be used by the guy switching out his girlfriend's face, but whatever, you get it. And here's what's tricky about it. I'll show something like this, and people will say, yes, Slater, that sounds awesome. My wife can look like Scarlett Johansson, and she can see me as Brad Pitt, and it makes both of us happy. So what's the problem? What do you care? Get off your high horse. I don't know how to best answer that, to be honest. If your greatest goal is to maximize happiness, then sure, I guess this is great for you. Your girlfriend can look like Taylor Swift. But if you have a value system that prioritizes reality, then this is without question the most destructive thing that's ever been invented. Because that's never been possible before. I mean, like beer goggles were the closest. That app should actually be called Beer Goggles. This app right here, this is the Beer Goggles app. Everyone's beautiful. Another issue, kind of, is that it makes everything else seem ancient, right? So this Vanity Fair writer, after trying on the Apple goggles for Apple Vision Pro for a while, then went to a coffee shop and opened up his laptop, and he said it felt like a relic from a Soviet Union power plant. That's one concern. I guess my bigger concern is that you'll be so bombarded, so inundated with hyper-realistic sensations that nothing will be good anymore. Like walking through the woods, the real woods, and seeing a real bird won't do it for you anymore, because in the metaverse you can, it's like hyper-sensorial. And it'll get to the point where we just can't live without these things. And all of our society will be built around them. And we'll just be massively addicted, like we already are with our phones, but this will be a million times worse. There was one Silicon Valley tech investor, he said, I'm sure this technology is terrific. I still think and hope it fails. He said Apple feels more and more like a tech fentanyl dealer that poses as a rehab provider. That's it. But remember, all these tech guys, they don't let their kids use iPads. Steve Jobs didn't let his own kids use the iPad. We already know that we're slaves to our phones, and we already know the effect of social media. We've seen this movie before. We know how it ends. I feel like we finally decided that these phones are really unhealthy for us, and then we're like, well, let's just strap them in front of our face. We'll be fine. At least we'll have both of our hands out. So we'll go from this walking down the street to this. And like that's like a huge improvement. And we're like flies to anything new and shiny. That's it. That's like our great priority, like convenience and novelty. Those are our values in America. Convenience and novelty. And Apple's those things. This Apple Vision Pro is no question. But as Shakespeare said, all that glitters is not gold. That was Shakespeare and Smash Mouth. All that glitters is not gold. It looks all nice and shiny, but in reality, we're all going to look like this. Look at these guys eating lunch together. Like, and the reality is, like, we're not that far from this. They look a little bit more ridiculous, but if you go back, like if you took someone from like the 50s and showed them videos of us with our phones eating lunch with people, they'd think we look just like that. You know, everyone knows you should look someone else in the eyes when they're talking to you, but now we don't even have eyes to look into. And I believe this technology is going to be crippling to kids as well. They'll never connect anything real. Just literally last week, my kids and I, we've made a bigger push to look each other in the eye, make eye contact when you're talking to them. You live in the metaverse, you'll never have to look another human being in the eye again. Listen, of course, there are some good things. There's some good uses, like all technology has. But everything has a cost. I just want us to focus on the cost. I know that we don't analyze it at all. We just like, oh, it's new, let's do it. Thomas Jefferson talked about how horses were bad because now people don't have to walk anymore. Check out this quote. He said, walking is, I think it was a letter to his nephew. He said, walking is the best possible exercise. Habituate yourself to walk very far. The Europeans value themselves on having subdued the horse to the uses of man. But I doubt whether we have not lost more than we have gained by the use of the animal. No one has occasioned so much the degeneracy of the human body. An Indian goes on foot nearly as far in a day for a long journey as an enfeebled white man does on his horse, and he will tire the best horses. So it's like, what, Thomas, you don't want people to walk? And he's like, or you don't want people to use a horse? And he's like, yeah, well, there's a cost. There's a cost to everything. And he's right. I'll look forward to bringing that quote up with our guests to see how they'd answer that. Let me leave you with one more thing before we get to those guests. This is the latest. This is the latest from OpenAI. It's called text to video. They call it Sora. So all you do is you type in a prompt and it makes video. So this is the prompt, historical footage of California during the gold rush. And AI just made that up. That's not real. That's a fake video. And made by text. Someone just typed in a sentence. All right, here's another one. A cat waking up its sleeping owner demanding breakfast. And AI, you see how like the comforter was like a little weird there? It's like it was like a little glitchy. But like the AI just made that up. just with a one-sentence prompt. Here's another one. The close-up shot of a chameleon showing its striking color-changing capabilities. That's an AI chameleon that AI just made with a one-sentence prompt. I'll give you one more. Drone camera circles around a beautiful historic church on the Amalfi Coast. That's made up. That's not real. That video right there is not real. This technology is scary good, and it's only going to increase exponentially from here. I don't trust human nature. I don't trust our Silicon Valley overlords. I don't trust the government. I don't trust myself. I'm out. I'm never going to put one of these things on my face because I know how addictive it will be. And maybe not this version, but it's only going to get better, and it's only getting more addictive from here. We got wonderful guests coming up next. We'll talk about this, how it applies to warfare. We'll talk how it affects the economy and how the people who are doing this, who are pushing this, they think they're God. It's all coming up right here on The First.
It has the potential, however small one may regard that probability, but it is non-trivial. It has the potential of civilizational destruction.
Whatever, has the potential. The great Joe Allen is here. You see his book behind him, Dark Aeon, Transhumanism and the War Against Humanity. Joe, how you doing, sir?
Just fine, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing really good. This special is specifically about Apple Vision Pro, but it's about much more than that. But briefly, give us your take on the Apple Vision Pro.
The most interesting thing about it is the kind of hype around it. It in many ways is more sleek and sophisticated than Meta's technology, if only because of the interface. It looks a lot better. So the question is whether that will be the inflection point that, you'll see widespread adoption of augmented reality, of virtual reality. Meta's metaverse really didn't take off as even I had assumed it would at the time. So, the real danger to all of this is obvious to most people. If you have a technology that allows people to sink into a digital world in a completely immersive way, if you have, what they call the kind of simulation in the brain of the sensory world being replaced by a digital one, then you have a populace that is at the best deluded and at the worst become kind of hosts for an algorithmic parasite. So I don't really think that Apple Vision Pro will be that inflection point of widespread adoption. I think we're probably a year or two away from that at least. But at the very, I do think it's important because it does show the continuation of that quest to, basically immerse humanity in the digital world, that fusion of the physical, digital, and biological identities that our boy Klaus Schwab is always talking about.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you that Apple Vision Pro is really only for the early adapter people, but it's their first foray into it, and it'll only get better and more sleek and cheaper and all this stuff. And it's a great opportunity for us to define our principles on this, so we can take a stand against it if you wish. Now, so I'm grateful for this early warning sign that we can all take. Let me ask you this question. You say it's obvious, right? You're like, oh, the problems are obvious. I don't think they are. I mean, I know maybe to like a more conservative person they are, but to most people they're not. I think most people are like, sure, let's slap this thing on my face. It'll be more convenient and things will be a little easier. And look how neat it is, right? And we'll just like go on with it. So when you talk, so I have like an immediate revulsion to it. Like and we were playing those clips on the side. I don't know if you saw them, like people walking around, like doing this in the air. And I'm like, what in the world is that? But I think most people see that and they're like, oh, I bet that's really cool. So what do you say to the people that don't have that instinctual like disgust of this technology?
I'm still trying to figure that out in many ways. But the argument I usually turn to is to look at the big picture. All sorts of things are great in their immediate experience. Drugs are fantastic when you're on them. Loose sex is awesome until the chickens come home to roost, so to speak. So, when you look at the big picture of all of these technologies, from the most mundane to the most radical, you see a couple of different dynamics at play. The two that I try to focus on the most are that these corporations do not have your best interests at heart. These corporations, by and large, are set up to make money, even if that is to the detriment of their consumers. It shouldn't be that way, of course, and it's not always that way, but it's that way enough that people should view any product with tremendous suspicion, at least skepticism. The other one, when you do look at the big picture, the kind of ideals that these tech companies are driving toward, that includes Apple, although they're much more reticent, but certainly Meta, OpenAI, Musk and all of his projects, Google and all of their projects. The key figures are intent on creating a world in which you have artificial general intelligence, AGI, or as I call it, artificial godlike intelligence. You have a mission on the part of pretty much all of them to find ways for human beings to interface with a supposedly superior being. And, it goes all the way down to, total neurological and even genetic transformation of those humans who do stick around and remain relevant in this revolution. So whether you believe that ideal is achievable or not, it's really important to understand that that is the ideal, that is the worldview, that is the ultimate goal of all of this. And if it turns out to be some sort of half-baked version, some approximation of this ideal future, it's still, for I think most people, nightmarish. To some extent, I think that does shake some people awake. But the reality is that people are going to do what they're going to do, and most people are going to do what is convenient. Most people are going to do what they think is going to give them high social status. Most people are going to do what they think is cool, even boomers.
Yeah, that's true. All right, great points there. Let's focus on the worldview one you talked about, because we need to know who we're following. So interesting. People think maybe they're just trying on a product or something, but it's no, you're following a person. You're following people who have a specific worldview, who are selling you this product. That's who we need to be thinking of. So this transhumanism idea, are they trying to replace God? Are they trying to be God? What are the spiritual ramifications of all of this?
I immediately think of Tucker Carlson's recent interview at the World Government Summit. I'm sorry for stammering over that. It used to be the World Government Summit for 7 years. Now they've changed it to World Governments Summit, but that's held in Dubai. Tucker Carlson being interviewed. And at the end of his interview, the very last statement he made was about the push for radical technology, because the World Government Summit is pretty much set up like the World Economic Forum as a booster for radical adoption of extreme tech. So he said he divides humanity into two different categories: those who believe in God, those who submit to a higher power, and those who believe that they are God. I think that that's a very, very astute observation. It misses one category, though, and that is those who want to create God. So just to take familiar examples from the big tech world, you've got Larry Page, who, according to Musk, and I think it's most likely accurate and not some sort of jab at his economic competitor. Larry Page, co-founder of Google, hopes that Google will lead to, and other tech projects like that, companies will lead to a kind of godlike AI, or at least superhuman AI, a kind of new species, what Max Tegmark calls Life 3.0, and that will be our successor. That humanity is a kind of a stepping stone or a biological bootloader for the ultimate software that will be carry the torch of life and consciousness into the universe. Wow. More, I guess, reasonable, you could say. That would be the post-humanist version, right? Like the goal is something post-human. The more reasonable or moderate version would be something like Elon Musk proposes. That would be much more in the transhuman category. So it's beyond human, but yet retains human characteristics. And so, for Musk, facing a world in which he believes his competitors are creating God in silico, that the best possible outcome for humanity would be to create AIs that are friendly towards humans, that are helpful towards humans. But for a lowly human, how do you even keep up? Well, for Musk and for many others, the idea is that you merge the human brain with AI, and that the human race basically remains relevant by a kind of human AI symbiosis. And they envision a world in which there's going to be all sorts of AIs. You could think of it as kind of like a Romanesque or polytheistic sort of religious system in which all of these different companies have created AGIs or artificial godlike intelligences, and we are left pretty much to fend for ourselves as humans. One of the ways to do that would be to jab a trode into your brain and connect it to a friendly AI that will guide you through the universe, sort of like a guardian angel.
It sounds insane, but Neuralink just put their first computer chip inside of a human's brain a couple weeks back, so that's not insane at all. I'm so glad you're here, Joe, because I want people to think of this stuff, even if they can't articulate it. I want them to feel this stuff when they put on an Apple Vision Pro and are like, oh, cool, it looks like I'm watching a 100-foot screen. It's like, oh, that's not all you're doing. You're doing a lot more than that. You're setting yourself up for a lot more than that as we continue to follow these people into potentially civilizational decline. And I want to go back to the opening clip from Elon Musk. My last question for you, Joe, because a lot of people will say, oh, Slater, Joe, you're overreacting. We read a quote earlier where Thomas Jefferson was lamenting the use of the horse over walking. And then, of course, people were against the car when that came out instead of the horse. And then people were afraid of trains when those were invented, right? So why is AI fundamentally different than other technological leaps that have occurred over the last even just, let's say, 200 years?
It's a spectrum. So, a very simple algorithm is much more like the horse, so to speak. It's something that can be an assistant, but also the more you rely on the algorithm, the less you rely on your brain. So now instead of horses, we have people, rolling around Walmart in rascal scooters because they're, too lazy to walk. So Thomas Jefferson was right, as was the ancient Greek myth in which Thoth is offering the king writing, and the king has a lot of misgivings because he says that if people learn to read and write, they will stop remembering, and he was correct. So with AI, with the very narrow AIs, it's much simpler. I guess it's much easier to justify their use. As they become much more complex, though, and as they become much more integrated into our lives, what I see as being the most immediate danger beyond any of these discussions of existential risk and human annihilation and all of that, what I see happening is that you have corporations in which those who are deploying these technologies benefit tremendously. Many of these people, in order to get to these positions, obviously have a tremendous self-discipline, and even if not, their handlers help them stay in control. So they're not going to fall weak in the same way that the average consumer will, that the masses will. And being here in the lowly masses, I would advise my fellow mass dwellers to consider what happens when you weaken yourself, when you become dependent on a technology to think. It's one thing to be dependent on a technology to walk. It's another to be dependent on that for thinking and for reasoning. Yes. And as we move into a world in which more and more you're going to have deep fakes, you're going to have digitally produced, AI-generated content, all these sorts of confusions, this digital delusion we're descending into, the one thing that is going to help defend you is your critical thinking skills. And to the extent you turn it over to an algorithm, then you are one dead battery away from being a moron. So I would say that that's probably the most immediate threat we face is that human AI symbiosis will not be an equal partnership. It will be a parasitic relationship. We'll become sort of like the caterpillars who have had wasps, lay their seeds in us. And as the larvae take control, we will become less and less like the caterpillar and more like the wasp.
That's so perfectly done. Joe Allen, the book is Dark Aeon, Transhumanism and War Against Humanity. Joe, great to talk to you, brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Keep it up. Wow. What happens? It's one thing to outsource how we walk to an animal or to a car. It's another to outsource how we think. Whoa. Mike Slater, right here on the First TV. Spread the word. Hey, welcome back to our special here about the Apple Vision Pro, but it's bigger than that. This is just Apple's first foray into this jump here. It's really about artificial intelligence and how this will affect our entire society. Christopher Alexander is here. He's an AI expert. He's the Chief Analytics Officer of the Pioneer Development Group. Christopher, how are you, sir?
Thank you.
Good to talk to you. I want to talk to you about how this will affect our economy and people's jobs specifically. But before we get to that, what are your thoughts on the Apple Vision Pro?
Well, I think it's very early stage technology, and I think they're throwing it out to the faithful and then seeing how it works, and then looking at how to miniaturize it. I think miniaturization is going to be the key. So you're not walking around with ski goggles on your face all the time.
Yeah. How small do you? Well, I was gonna say how small do you see it getting? But Elon just put a brain chip into someone's brain, so a computer chip into someone's brain, so it could get pretty small. But it's just like anything, right? I mean, like computers used to be the size of a warehouse, and now they're minuscule. It'll be like that, right?
Exactly. I imagine they'll figure out a way to make the frame of the glasses, all of the computing technology would be where they'd move to. And just a matter of time, right? The more powerful the chip, the smaller it gets, the better this approach is going to work for Apple, I think.
It's amazing. What are the Apple Vision Pro people and developers focusing on when it comes to the Apple Vision Pro? What's their vision?
Well, one thing industry-wide that's definitely happening is the use of AI. And, to date, what AI is used for is going through massive amounts of data and connecting those dots that a team of human analysts may never be able to figure out. And, what they were talking about in Las Vegas at CES this year is sort of the next wave, which is looking at all of your data. Granted, you're giving them permission to use this, but connecting all those dots in your personal life. So instead of a massive data model with millions or even billions of people, it's everything about you to help make better recommendations about where you might want to eat, go to vacation, or what you might want to buy in the future.
That's so wild, because the first thing I think we have a space for there is what you want to buy, right? So you clicked on this link once, and now the algorithm thinks you'll like this link. But that's whatever. Like, it's got to be more than just that, right? What else could this data possibly know about me and make my life, quote unquote, better?
Sure. Well, it looks at everything from when you like to buy things, which is probably more designed to help the company that wants to sell you something, but to those things that you don't know you like, right? So the latest generation of ad technology that serves you ads on the web, they like to say, when you look at Google search, that's what you're looking for. And what they're trying to do behind the scenes is combine all this data about you to figure out what you didn't know you needed. So maybe, for example, you start wandering at work with things you're looking at in your search history, or your sleep patterns change and they work out. That's when you really need a vacation. And the assistant may say, hey, you should think about it. Here's some places to go. Especially if you think of biometric data. AI is going to be moving into your automobile, looking at how you drive, even and where you go. So just a staggering amount of data. And what's perhaps most interesting is AI systems are going to figure out what AI systems need to do because the problem is so complicated.
Okay, yeah, that last thing was pretty meta. So AI will be improving AI. That seems problematic to me eventually.
It can be. The big problem right now is what's called the black box. Those are the algorithms that govern any AI's operation. And those rules that are written that become algorithms are proprietary for good reason. They really are where the magic happens, if you will. So there's a real struggle right now about how to safely regulate that while also protecting innovation and companies' proprietary data. It's going to be a huge challenge moving forward.
Who watching now needs to be the most worried about their job being replaced?
White collar workers who deal with large amounts of data, an actuary, a paralegal, people like that. I would suggest if you're in those industries, the analogy is it's the 1970s and you're an auto worker in Detroit. The difference and the good news for people is, unlike the 1970s in Detroit, you couldn't, in the 70s, they couldn't fly to Japan and go to the robotics factory and understand how the robotics was going to impact the assembly line and then learn to work with it, right? It just came and off they went. Anyone can learn how to work with AI right now. Log in, you got to give me your email address. I promise you they already probably have it. And you can figure out how to implement AI in your workplace. So it's not really coming to replace you, but it is going to make you more productive. And you're going to see one of two things: hiring freezes or reductions as a result.
Yeah, IBM first comes to mind, right? They said they were going to eliminate 4,000 jobs at IBM. And hopefully that's a wake up to like white collar workers. Like, wait, IBM, these aren't low wage assembly line workers who are getting cut. These are people like me. So hopefully people can see that. How can it help someone's job?
Well, depending on who you ask, which probably directly correlates to how much their particular firm is invested in an AI capability. The general number is about 30 to 40% improvement in productivity for white collar staff. So the way that you can really use it, internal communications, it's great to go through, the AI goes through, looks at what you've written, make sure it's coherent, it's well written, and so on and so forth. No professional student shouldn't be using it exclusively, but something like internal communications where you're worried about a typo in a corporate setting, it's going to do that for you. It's an okay research tool. It certainly gets the basics and points you in the right direction. In a lot of ways, AI is like a calculator, but for writing and some research and thinking, which is to say, you got to know how it works. You got to know what the answer is so you can be sure you can trust it. But it's going to speed things up and make it a lot easier and free you up for higher level tasks.
We only got about a minute. What's your dystopian future of this if we're not careful?
Well, the Air Force, and now they've said it didn't exactly happen that way, but they ran a test and they were looking to break it. I do want to make this clear. They were looking to find problems with the AI, but they gamified a drone being controlled by a human operator attacking targets. And they gave the AI a point for every target that it destroyed. The AI drone destroyed the targets that it was supposed to, and then noticed there were a series of other targets and wanted to engage the targets. The operator, the human operator, remember the AI didn't know whether this was real or not, said, no, there's civilian casualties that could be risked. This isn't a valuable target, or against the laws of warfare. And the AI attacked the drone operator so that it could continue to score points. So they stopped the exercise, started again, and the AI engaged a second time. And when it got to that same problem, it couldn't kill the operator. So it proceeded to try to destroy the world's communication systems so it couldn't be told to stop. So AI already right now is like a sociopathic 4-year-old that you teach to win games, very much like that movie War Games. And so we're kind of there. The good news is in the Department of Defense, they have a policy. An AI capability can't take a human life. So there's some safeguards, but AI is basically, a 4-year-old that will kill you to win.
Yeah. What will happen before we put a safeguard in real life? That is my concern, because there'll be things that we never even would have thought of. That's my concern. Christopher Alexander, AI expert, Chief Analytics Officer of Pioneer Development Group. Christopher, great to talk to you, sir.
Thank you.
We'll actually talk more coming up in our next segment about what this will look like in warfare with our next guest, Mike Slater, right here on The First TV.
So I think this AI will be uplifting to the middle class because it's in essence the most expensive, most talented workers are people who have 20 years experience and know how to apply that. That's what AI does overnight.
Will this be good for the middle class? Carl Szabo is here, Vice President, General Counsel for NetChoice, and a professor of Internet Law at George Mason's Scalia Law School. Professor Szabo, how you doing, sir?
Doing well, thank you.
Great for you here. So what does this do for our jobs here in America?
Yeah, I was reading about AI recently, and I read a couple of quotes, and they said it will destroy truth, it will destroy an entire profession, and will destroy privacy. And the article actually wasn't talking about AI at all. It was talking about photography and photographs. And we have seen how photographs can be made to lie. We see it every couple of days. Famously, William Randolph Hearst said, "You give me the pictures, I'll give you the war," which led us in the Spanish-American War. They'll destroy a whole profession. The concern then was the annihilation of painters. But what we've actually seen, because of photographs, we have a whole profession created called photography. And they'll destroy our privacy. Well, privacy changes all the time. We have multiple cameras pointing at us all the time. We actually kind of like it. So what we have seen then and what we are seeing now are basically the same concerns, just fast forwarded 100 years ago. Now, I'm not saying that nothing will change. In fact, AI will greatly change our society and the way we operate. But the wonderful thing is, what we've seen time and time again is when new technology comes online, it creates more jobs than it takes away. And so really excited to get into that with you as we kind of digest how AI will change the landscape of the job market.
Yeah, let's do that. And then I want to actually pivot into how it'll help us or change how we fight wars too, because it will change everything. But when I first heard about AI when it comes to jobs, someone told me, it'll affect like radiologists. It just won't affect lower income people. It'll affect doctors and how doctors do their job. And we'll have no more need for radiologists to look at scans of cancer cells when AI can do it 1,000 times faster and more effectively. So who will the AI affect?
Yeah, I mean, it will affect almost everyone. Now, amazingly, blue collar jobs are actually the ones that are most empowered by AI, because at the end of the day, we still need people to build houses. We still need electricians. We still need plumbers. We need people to actually do work. And the work is going to become more complicated, which requires more skilled people across the board. Now, when it comes to things like radiologists, so radiologists look at mammograms and cancer diagnosis, but they're not going to be eliminated either. Now, we've seen this time and time again. So I'm an attorney, right? So if you're a lawyer who doesn't know how to use a computer, well, then, yeah, you're going to be up a hill. And if you're a radiologist who doesn't know how to use AI, you're going to be in the same position. We're not eliminating radiologists. We are eliminating radiologists who don't know how to use the new technology. And that's where the new opportunities lie. We need to actually begin training the skills. We need to begin teaching the ways to leverage the technology so that people can do more with less. So we're not going to eliminate jobs. We're actually going to make people more efficient and allow them to do more using technology.
I'm totally with you for the next 0 to 15 years. But let's go 30 years out. Why have a radiologist? What's the point of even having any?
Yeah, and you know what? 30 years out, that profession may not be needed anymore. We don't have elevator operators today because we go in and we push a button and it takes us to the floor we need. We don't have carriage drivers because they've been replaced by cars. And you know what? A lot of people who used to have to work on the farm their entire lives don't have to do that anymore. Their kids can go off to college and do other things in their lives because of combines and things like that. So anytime a new piece of technology comes out, there will be job displacement over time, but it's not overnight. And the wonderful thing is, at the end of the day, people will find jobs. They do find jobs. And we are facing right now some of our lowest unemployment numbers in history. So if anything, we need to make it easier for people to find the jobs that they want and get out of the jobs that they're stuck in.
How will AI change how we fight wars?
Yeah, so one of the things that I really get excited about, not only is AI going to be just truly transformative for stopping things like cancer, inventing the new medication to kind of save our lives during the next pandemic, when it comes to AI and warfare, it's going to be truly instrumental. One of the things that AI is really, really good at is looking at tons of pieces of data and drawing connections. Kind of like imagine somebody from the movie A Beautiful Mind, where they've got all the pieces of paper with the lines of yarn and push pins. AI can make connections in milliseconds that we couldn't even comprehend. So think about trying to find Osama bin Laden. When it came to 9/11, we had the intelligence, we had the information, we just could not connect the dots to stop the terrorist attack, nor could we connect the dots to find him. AI can do that, and it will save lives. Similarly, in the war going on right now in the Middle East, Israel's Iron Dome, which shoots down incoming missiles from Hamas, that is done through artificial intelligence. That is done through calculations, where it's able to calculate incoming missiles and launch an intercept within milliseconds. We're putting that on our battleships, and this will save American lives if we are allowed to continue to develop and innovate it.
Yeah, if we have it first, I think it would be part of it as well, if we're able to use it the best. Okay, so you paint a rosy picture, Professor. Give me some negatives. Give me a dystopian view. Give me something bad that you think could be used. If we're not careful, we need to think about this.
Yeah, and everything needs to be done intelligently. So typically conversations devolve into AI is the Terminator or AI is racist. And fortunately, we have laws on the books today to address much of these concerns. Artificial intelligence is heavily regulated today. I'll say that again. It's heavily regulated today. Hundreds, if not thousands of laws today apply to artificial intelligence. Let's pick on illegal discrimination. So a lot of people are worried that there will be AI used for illegal discrimination in job selection. That is illegal today. It's illegal whether you do it as a person, an individual, or use a computer. And that's where we have laws that just need to be applied to artificial intelligence. With respect to the Terminator scenario, perhaps maybe we don't connect artificial intelligence to our nuclear arsenal. That's a way to prevent that potential outcome. And then when it comes to regulating artificial intelligence, one of the worst things that we can do is outlaw it, stop it, or pause it. We're seeing calls, whether it's from the president on down, in Congress and at the state level, to pause development. And all that means is that the United States will not have this technology, but all the bad actors, because bad actors don't follow the law, will have this technology and they will weaponize it against us.
Yeah, it's definitely true. All right, Carl Szabo, lots more to talk about. We'll do it again. He's Vice President of Net Choice, and he's over at the wonderful George Mason Law School. Professor, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, very interesting there from the professor. I've never called for banning this, to be clear. All I want us to do is to go in with eyes wide open and for us all to make a decision, to make a wise decision about whether you want to be in. I want us to be intentional. On my podcast, Politics by Faith, a couple weeks back, we talked about Jonathan Edwards and his 70 resolutions for his life. And one of them was to examine carefully and constantly what that one thing is in me which causes me in the least to doubt of the love of God and direct all my forces against it. So I just love the constant thinking, evaluating, examining, and then finding a thing. And so it's like being intentional, but then putting all my forces against it, right? If you don't like it, if it's bad, I'm out. And I just want us to have that intentionality. And to not think that, oh, it's new, it's shiny, okay, without considering, is it good? And is it right? And should I be using this? A lot of people are like, oh, you conservatives, you're just so scared of this. No, I'm not scared. I'm repulsed. or it's like a revulsion. I've Walter Kern, I think, called it a spiritual gag reflex, right? I'm just, oh, this is bad, I don't want this. Again, maybe good things, sure. But all tech comes at a cost. They all come at a cost. And I just want us to be aware of the costs. I can't imagine how bad AI could be. Maybe some of us can. And that's why we're out. But it's up to you. Which way are you going to choose? Politics by Faith, First TV.